Tim Petrowich here for Dateline Marion, and as usual, our guest today is Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. Wildcats are 1-1 now after going up north to Dunlap, falling short 35-21. And Coach, we talked about this after the game Friday night, but I'm sure as you go back and look at film and things like that, you're right with Dunlap in the middle of the fourth quarter, a team that was ranked 8th in the state when you played them. Very, very good football team that put a whooping on the Galesburg team a week earlier. So you were right there, and I think you got to feel good about that.
Well, you know, you hate those consolation prizes.
Sure.
But when you've coached as long as I have, you have to find the good things out of it you can build on, and the things that you can correct, and certainly to compete with them for 3 quarters, 3.5 quarters, and to be in the ball game was good, because they're a good football team. You know, if we would have, been in a ball game and struggling with a team that wasn't very good, then even if you win that game, you've got some bigger issues. But I thought they were an excellent football team, and I thought our kids really elevated at times in the game, and I thought our physicality was better. I thought our pace, our engine, we call that motor, our motor was faster. There were a lot of things we could build on. Obviously they're a good football team, and they did a lot of things well. Their running game was tough to stop. Running back was an outstanding player, and they had some really good football players. But overall, there's a lot of things we could take positive from this and build on to become a better team.
One of the things, and I can point to 3 or 4, one of the things that I clearly saw that I thought was impressive on your part was, first of all, if you go through the first quarter stats, I think you guys ran maybe 8 or 9 plays and had 3 total yards in offense in the first quarter, yet you're tied 7-7 at the end of the first quarter. Of course, you got the big interception return by Jaden. And first of all, let's talk about that, because it was a play that we've seen Jaden, not that play, but we've seen Jaden do this before. You play to the whistle, and it looked like the ball may have bounced on the floor or the ground. The officials thought it hit the receiver's hands and popped up in the air, and he caught it and went. And we've seen him do that several times where everyone else thinks you're down, he keeps going.
It's a good point. He did it here on a run where he flipped over a tackler and landed on his feet and kept running, and everyone else stopped. And I think the fact that Jaden didn't hesitate on that play allowed that play to continue, because if we go back and look at the film, we think the ball hit something, because it takes a funny bounce. I've seen a lot of balls hit the turf. But that ball hit something other than just turf, because the way it,
we thought the way it sounded, it hit the receiver's hands. The receiver had his hands down or something like that.
Yeah, we've tried to really narrow in on that, but the fact that Jaden didn't hesitate, I think had a lot to do with the referees letting that play continue, whether they were 100% sure it hit something other than turf. But I thought it was a huge play, a big turning point in the game, because they had just kind of taken it down to us for the opening score, and we had been stopped, and they may have been on their way to a second touchdown when that play happened. That really gave us the momentum we needed. I think, given it's an away game at their place, and I think the long travel, I think we needed something to kickstart us, and I think that interception really got us back in the ball game mentally, and I think that had a big effect on us in the second quarter, which then we put together one of our best drives of the game and took it down the field at a pretty good tempo, and I thought from that point on played really good football.
Yeah. And again, after that first quarter when there was next to no offense, the offense did make the adjustments to start moving the football, and you were able to move the football pretty much the rest of the game, and then it was the turnover situation that really hurt you.
The turnovers hurt us, and then of course we had the long run from Caden early in the drive, so we were in a situation where we had put together a really good sustained drive. We needed to do that 3 or 4 more times to keep our defense off the field. For me, the problem was the turnovers, whether they were on the offense or on the special teams, coupled with the quick score by Caden, kept putting our defense back on the field. And I thought by the time we got to the fourth quarter, my biggest concern, even though the game was tied, was our defense wearing down. And I think that's what got us in the end. I think our defense just had been out there way too many snaps, and we, those things came back to haunt us, I think, late in the game.
I think there were a lot of sore bodies on both teams after the game
I
Friday
agree.
night. That was one of the more physical games I've seen in a long time.
It was a very physical game, and we talked all week to our kids about increasing our physicality against a team like that, and we've talked about this week as well. You can't beat these elite teams that are ranked in the top 10 in state unless you match them physically, and you can only finesse so much. At some point, football is still football, and you've got to be physical. And whether you're spread offense or tight offense or special teams or whatever you're doing, it's still a physical game, and you've got to be a physical team to compete. And I think we've heard some great coaches say in the past, the more physical team almost always wins football games. And there's a lot of truth in that statement. And so we really focused on that Friday, and we need to continue that all year long.
I think to a certain extent Dunlap was also able to kind of exploit a little bit of a size differential on the outside with their two big receivers. I didn't realize how tall those guys were until we got there on the field and saw
Boy,
them.
they did. They had 3 receivers at least 6'2" or taller, maybe 6'3", 6'4". The tight end linebacker kid I hear is going to Northwestern or may go to Northwestern. The 2 wide receivers, 2 and 18, I believe, were both
Right.
big kids, and not just tall kids, but I mean athletically strong kids. I was impressed by their athleticism. The little running back was the smaller of the group in stature, but man, he was a hard-nosed kid, kind of reminded me of a little bit of a Henry Jones type runner.
Right.
Yeah, very tough.
Up until the last play, you had talked about what they had done defensively to Galesburg. Up until that last score they didn't have very many big plays. I think only 2 plays at more than 20 yards in the whole game up until that point.
They just drove it. And of course they had a big play early in the game, but after that it was pretty much ground and pound on us. I mean, and our defense, who I thought had a really good second half against Mascoutah, I thought played a very good ball game, considering our offense didn't do enough to help our defense. I think to say we gave up 34 points, but you go back, our defense, our offense turned the ball over, our special teams turned the ball over, and we just didn't get enough first downs. We didn't put enough sustained drives, and sustained drives will keep their good athletes on offense off the field, and we didn't help our defense out very much.
Well, we're going to talk about Highland in just a minute, but I want to kind of look at the totality of these first 3 games now. We talked about Mascoutah and 0-9 and 1-8. They hung one on Mattoon Friday night, so maybe Mascoutah's a little better than people from the outside thought. You thought they were a pretty good football team.
I did.
They kind of showed that this past Friday.
I did. I thought they were a much improved team from what I had seen on the films from 2016, and I didn't know how much improved. I know the night we played them, I was very impressed. And then to find out they beat Mattoon by 40 points was quite shocking, to be honest. I mean, not that they're not a good team, but Mattoon has been a very strong program for many years.
Too.
Yeah, and I talked to the Mascoutah coach on the way home. We were texting, and he told me his score, and I was like, wow, that's an impressive win against a good program. So maybe they were better than we thought. I know Dunlap was a good team, and I know Highland's going to be a good team. So it's just we got to keep fighting, keep getting better.
Well, we talked about Dunlap being ranked 8th in the state. Highland comes into the game. I don't know what the rankings are this week yet, but last week they were ranked 4th. They played a team that's been in the 7A playoffs several times in the last several years and won 63-33 last week. 63 points is a lot of points against a 7A team.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive, and they've got an explosive offense. We'll talk a little bit kind of about their personnel in just a minute, but I'm sure you've seen the film.
Yeah.
How do they compare with Dunlap?
Well, I think they look like more of a big play team, in my opinion. The quarterback is a special player. He's a runner and a passer. He's a big kid. If things aren't like he likes them, he'll take off and run the ball. So he's that weapon that can scramble out of the pocket, create plays. They've got a series of good receivers. One in particular is outstanding, big target, 6'5". They're just a really good football team, and Coach Warnke does a great job of coaching them up, and they're solid and consistent on defense, and they're really good. You'd love to get a film and hope that maybe that ranking isn't quite deserving, but they have played two 7A teams and won by at least 30 or 40 points in both games. So they're the real deal.
The quarterback, his name is Kerry Martin. He had more than 500 yards in total offense last week. Looking at the stats, 374 yards in the air, 170 yards passing. And you're right, or 170 yards rushing rather. The stats kind of remind you of a prototypical Centralia quarterback.
Yeah. He's, as I said, you watch him on film. I mean, he's big. He's poised in the pocket. He's got a really strong arm. He's a confident player, and we had heard good things about him coming into the season, but I was very impressed by them. I think, and it wasn't just like a one-man show either. I mean, there's other things around him that are good. So they create all kinds of dilemmas for us. And once again, I'll go back to the Dunlap game. We can't let that happen. We're going to have to make sure we get some drives and, get some points on the board early and give our defense a chance to regroup and keep their best weapons on the sideline.
One of the things that we noticed last week that I think will be important this week is at one point Dunlap's quarterback, you'd seen the running back Bennyhoff several times in a row. The quarterback pulled it back and took off and ran and got a pretty sizable gain. And one time you had to mention someone needed to stay home and watch the quarterback, and like the next 2 or 3 times he tried to run, he was stopped in the backfield. So the defense did a good job of adjusting to that.
Yeah. Well, and as you mentioned earlier, I mean, Centralia's had several quarterbacks. Rashad Campbell played quarterback against us 1 year, and Javon Williams has been there for 3. And we have faced running quarterbacks. Champaign Centennial brought us a running quarterback here a couple of years ago, and so it's not something we're not accustomed to. It's just a matter of adapting to that individual. I think the thing that stands out about him is that not only can he run, but he's liable to throw it at any time to anyone. And his ability to evade in the pocket and be a runner and then throw the ball accurately reminds me of the Ivy kid from Cahokia a few years ago.
I was going to mention him.
Yeah, I mean, so he falls into that category of quarterback that we've seen that it truly is what we call a dual threat.
So what are the keys for the Wildcats? I'm sure there's a chink in the armor, and you probably don't want to give away a whole lot, but what are the keys in the armor?
Well, I think the important thing is that in all 3 facets of the game, we have to be consistent. And all 3 facets have to play well. We can't have a good defensive game, but the special teams and offense let us down. We've got to be good in all 3 phases. Field position will matter. We've got to stop big plays. They are the kind of team, when you watch the film, they will score in a hurry with a long run or a long pass. 3 plays, boom, they've gone 70 yards. I mean, we have to make them drive the ball. And so if we can eliminate the big play consistent in 3 phases, the offense has got to move the ball. The offense has got to get first downs. The offense has to protect the football and not give up possessions. I think if we do those things, we can be in the ball game. We can give ourselves a chance to compete in this ball game and win the game late. And we go into every game believing we have a game plan to win. It's no different this week. But I'm also a realist to know that it's going to take a great effort from us. Anyone that plays Highland better give a great effort. I don't care who you are. And so we know going in what the expectations are, and we fully intend to give it a great effort and play well in all 3 phases and come out here with a win. But we know it's going to take that kind of preparation all week long, and because they're a handful.
I think it would have been easy looking at who you were playing last week in the long road trip to think that you were maybe overmatched. And I think after the game, the kids have to look at it and say, if we hang on to the ball 1 or 2 more times or something like that, we win this game.
Yeah.
I think they got to feel like that. So I think that has to give them confidence going into this week's game as well.
I think so too. I think if we would have gone up to Dunlap and lost by 4 touchdowns and we're never really in the game, I think that sends a different message. But to be 21-21 late in the game or 4th quarter of the second half and to be still in the game, and I mean still in the hunt, and you're playing in a 1-score game for a period of time in that 4th quarter with the ball, I think that's got to give you confidence, because our kids absolutely knew that Dunlap was a good football team. So you could see it on film from the first day we put it in. It was easy to see, and I think seeing them in person and watching our kids compete against them, I think has given our kids a little bit of confidence. Even though you like to get confidence from a win, confidence can come from a loss if you play a good team well, and I think we got that on Friday.
You talk about Highland's big play potential. Are they faster than the Wildcats?
You know, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. It's one of those things hard to judge on film because I don't know much about Alton and Belleville East, but I know they must have good speed because these are two big 7A schools from a very good football conference, and so I would anticipate they're pretty fast. I don't know, and I think there's a difference between true speed and football speed. I think they got really good football speed.
You're at home Friday night, first time this season.
Excited.
Talk about how important that is.
Well, we're just glad to be home. My goodness, we've had two pretty good road trips. You know, Muscuda seems short now, but you know, I think just to be home, we have a great home atmosphere. We've had a lot of success at this stadium, and we have this great student support with the Maniacs, and you know, our dream when we got here in 2002 was to make this the place to be on Friday night, and I hope it's become that. I look forward to our band and our dance team and our cheerleaders and everything that's special about Marion coming together on Friday night at 7 o'clock. And if that gives us a little bit of an advantage or gives us a little bit of a boost, we'll take it. We may need it on Friday, but we are excited about the opportunity to play a good football team, another measuring stick to see where we're at, and hopefully we can get win number 2.
Marion plays Highland Friday night here in Marion, 7 o'clock kickoff. That's Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. For Dateline Marion, I'm Tim Petrowich.